Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be comparing a 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee to a 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee L. First and foremost though, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry H. Miller Dodge Ram here in Provo for giving me some time with both of these Grand Cherokees. Check out the inventory link below. Let's get straight into the video. Now before I get into anything, I do want to mention this isn't a perfectly fair comparison because this is a 2021 Grand Cherokee L Summit Reserve, and then this is a 2021 Grand Cherokee Laredo X. But obviously you guys know there's huge car shortages, so we've got to make do with what we are given. And so this will be a basic overview of the key differences between both of the vehicles, kind of from like a stylistic perspective. And so yeah, let's get into it. Now let's start with the front design of both of the Jeeps. So starting with the old Grand Cherokee, notice with the hood, I've got this indentation in the center, and then here on either side how it's flat and then it kind of pops down. And then coming to the headlights, notice the shape of them. And then with the LED lights, if you did get those as an option, the accent light would be all the way around. Still have the Jeep signature front grille, and then coming down below, look at kind of like the fog light design and then the overall front bumper. And just notice how it's kind of boxy looking compared to the new one. The new one's definitely smoother, sleeker. So first off, the hood's a lot less busy. It's completely flat, and then notice how it kind of just slightly pops down. And then with the LED accent lights just at the top, we've got reflector LEDs instead of the projector bulbs you got on the old Grand Cherokee. And then we still have the signature Jeep grille, but just notice how it's a little bit smaller overall in terms of like the size on the vehicle itself, and obviously looks nicer because again this is the Summit package. And then notice everything down here with the grille, how they kind of continue that honeycomb design, and you guys can see also with the fog light down here, but just how that's all integrated versus the old one. So you can see that the design on the new one really isn't more complicated. They've just kind of smoothed things out, and it's actually made it a lot more beautiful because they've made it less busy. So I want to quickly mention we have the same engine under the hoods of both of the Grand Cherokee. So they both have 3.6 liter V6s, go through 8-speed automatic transmissions, and have similar power outputs. So that is all the same. Now for the L, you can get the V6 or you can get the 5.7 Hemi. You can't get any other engine options yet, whereas with the old Grand Cherokee, you could get anything from the V6 all the way up to the supercharged V8 with the Trackhawk. So you're a little bit more limited with engine options with the new Grand Cherokee L at this point. But just wait, folks. Now, if we come here to the side, you guys can see a distinct difference with the ride height. That's because this Grand Cherokee L has the air suspension. You could get that on the previous generation. With this new air suspension, though, it seems like it's quite a bit smoother with the raising and lowering. And then here's kind of a quick look at everything there. I love the design on these new wheels. Now, you could get some pretty cool wheels on the previous generation, but these new ones, I mean, just look at how cool that looks. Now, aside from the wheels, notice another big change here is kind of with the fender area. Notice that this is somewhat similar with both of them in terms of the overall shape. That's still kind of like Jeep-ish, if that makes sense. But notice with the fender flares, they make these pop out a lot more, versus on the L, they kind of make it so it's a little bit more flush with the bodywork. And then coming to the mirrors, kind of look at the difference in the shape of the mirror. So the mirror looks quite a bit more sleek. And then also notice how this all ties in and goes up, whereas with this, it's just kind of separate. So a little bit different. Grand Cherokee logos are in the same place, so I guess that has stayed unchanged. And then coming here to the door handles, look at the difference. So this is actually the lock function here on the new one, and then you just put your hand on the back to unlock it. But look at the old one and kind of just like the fit and finish on it, and then also the button and how that all looks design-wise. So the new one definitely looks quite a bit nicer and really seamless with the overall functionality on that. Now coming here to the back again, notice that the wheel arch area kind of, again, similar in shape to an extent, but obviously since this is the L, it's quite a bit longer there in the back. And then also with the rails here at the top, you guys can kind of see somewhat similar. Obviously these are more plasticky, but I mean, somewhat similar. Now let's go over things here in the rear. So we'll start off with the older Grand Cherokee. So one of the things that annoyed a lot of people were the taillights because, well, that kind of dated the SUV just with the overall shape of them and then the look of the LEDs as well. But also notice the spoiler there at the top, kind of the overall shape, and then how the parking sensors are integrated, and then with the exhaust tip there at the bottom. And then coming over here to the Grand Cherokee L, notice how the spoiler looks like it flows a lot better with the rest of the bodywork compared to the old one. The old one kind of looks plopped on a little bit. And then also notice with this, how the trim all nicely fits. There's no trim that kind of comes around. And then also with the taillights, just look how much nicer they look. And then with the exhaust tips, the integration's nicer. And then the parking sensors, somewhat similar, I guess, on that side. And then we'll open both of them up. So just got to press that. And then it's actually down here for the old one. So I guess that's another difference, is the opening. Now, obviously, storage space with a third row up is going to be a little bit less compared to the old one, but when you fold those seats down, you get more storage space than what the old one has. And just look how nice this metallic plaque is down here. And then obviously the new one has these nice controls here for all of the seats and all that fun stuff. But if we pop here into the back, again, like I said, more storage space, all that kind of stuff. But even the button itself doesn't look as nice as what the new one has, which is interesting. And then you actually get a spare tire with this one, but we're going to close that up. And then you guys can see again with the new button, even the little button here to close it, look how much nicer that looks aesthetically. And that one's closed, and that one's closed. So now we'll head to the back. So again, I understand this isn't the most fair comparison because again, we've got Laredo X versus a Summit Reserve. So we have like the top line trim versus one of the entry level packages. But again, this is mostly about the design differences with both of them. So notice here at this top portion of the door panel, notice that the shape right there is pretty much the same. And then also right here, notice that that is the same, pretty similar. This is a little bit different in terms of the shape where the leather is placed right there. And then coming down below on the door panel, notice the overall shape is pretty similar. Now, if you got a Summit with the old package, you would get tons of nice leather and everything. Design-wise, it didn't look as beautiful as this new one, but material-wise, it was just as nice. And then if we come to the seats, you can see the overall shape of the seats. Now, these seats are actually pretty hard compared to the new seats in terms of like how they actually feel. And then you guys can see the whole center stack there with the vents and then the outlet and all that kind of stuff with the old one. And then coming here to the new one, again, the seats just feel so much softer. And then you guys can see the design here on the new seats. The old Summit definitely had nice looking seats, so I will say that. And then you've got like the whole climate control area, and just notice how that looks quite a bit more modern. And then we have the center console. And then obviously, since this is an L, we've got a third row, whereas you couldn't get a third row at the Grand Cherokee before. So that's another huge difference. But there's a lot of similarities, actually. It's just they kind of integrated things a little bit nicer from a design perspective. And I'm going to give you guys tons of anxiety. Ha! I measured it. Don't worry. Let's head to the fronts. Now we're starting over here with the old Grand Cherokee for the front. You guys can see the trim right here and then all of the leather down below in the front door panel. And then the front seats, that whole shebang, and then the adjustments on the seats, how everything kind of looks. And then we'll pop in quickly and start it up. And then a look at the steering wheel has been a huge change, like with how the controls look, because even on the higher up packages, you still get the same look with the steering wheel and the controls, just a little bit nicer kind of materials all around. And then there's a quick look at the gauge cluster, because that's another big change. We'll turn down the AC. And then also with the infotainment system, this is pretty nice with the integration, but the new one definitely looks a lot nicer with the integration. And then the backup camera itself, there's also been a change there as well with kind of like the resolution in terms of how that looks. And then also how the drive modes are integrated with the old one. You just have the Sport and then the Eco. And then if you got like the Quadra Select, then you could, I think it's called the Quadra Select. Sorry if I'm wrong with that. But anyways, the off-road drive mode select, you had some other modes as well, but for like the base Grand Cherokees, you didn't get all those off-road drive modes. And then here's the shifter. This is another big change, is actually the shifter with both of them. And then you guys can see the center console and all that. But yeah, just look how they integrate everything. And then if you got like a higher package, you would get nice stitching and leather here on the dash. But like this kind of design with the material use here was pretty much the same. At least they made that flow into a line. But look how the vents are integrated. Not necessarily the nicest looking. And then if we pop here up to the top, you guys can see, and then you could get a panoramic sunroof in the previous Grand Cherokee. And then also the mirror. That is another big option that is basically changed with this versus the L. But yeah, this is the previous one. So what we're gonna do now is we'll pop over and, well, let's turn it off so nobody steals it. So yeah, and then we will pop over into the L. And then you guys can see here with the door panel, again, somewhat similar with the shape in terms of where the materials are put, but I feel like the overall design definitely looks a lot nicer, especially the new speaker for the sound system. And then again with the front seats, you can see that whole setup with the power adjustments right there. And then if we pop here, even like the window control, or not the window control, rather the light control looks nicer. Who knows what I'm smoking at this point if I said window control and look at the light control. But anyways, the steering wheel, this is another big change. Just look how beautiful materials are, but just look at the design here in terms of the shape of the airbag cover, and then down here with all the materials, and then the look of the buttons. Everything looks a lot nicer, a lot more premium. You can see the paddles there. Those stocks are the same though, so that hasn't changed. And then you guys can see here with the center gauge cluster, the whole digital readout looks so much more modern, looks a lot nicer as well. And then the infotainment system, this is like the biggest change in my opinion, because look how nice the controls are at the top, and then the integration here into the rest of the dash, like it looks like it fits. It looks like it's a part of the vehicle, not just plopped on. And then the wood trim behind. And like I said, material use in the old Summit was pretty similar, but this just design-wise, how it all comes together looks a lot nicer. And then here at the dash as well. And then you guys can see all the integration with the rest of the controls. And then yes, we don't have like a regular shifter, we have the dial knob, and then the drive mode select. Like you feel like you're doing something important when you change the drive modes with the Grand Cherokee L. And that's just for the air suspension, a couple cup holders. And then you guys can see the center console, and then we'll finish things here at the top. So again, with the old Summit, you could get the same premium headliner that this has, but again, I just feel like it looks slightly nicer. And then this is a huge difference with the camera mirror, huge safety tech difference. And then this stuff up here, not too different in terms of what that looks like control wise, so that really isn't a big change with both of them, but I guess that's the interiors. Now let's get a nice summarization here with the two Grand Cherokees. So obviously the L is longer, and it's the first time in such a long time you can get a third row Jeep SUV, which is just fantastic. But aside from that, what they've really done is they've cleaned up the exterior aesthetics, so it looks like a much more modern, much sleeker SUV on the outside, and it looks more on the luxury side. Like the old one, it wasn't a bad looking vehicle, but this looks like a full-blown luxury vehicle from an exterior perspective. And then in terms of the interior, right, they use very nice materials like they used in the previous Summit, but design-wise, it looks just a little bit prettier. Everything's integrated a little bit nicer. With the old Grand Cherokee, some things looked like they were kind of an afterthought, like they were plopped on after the fact. Whereas again, with this new one, it looks like it was very meticulous with the design. Everything is there. It all has a purpose. It's there for a reason. So it just looks a lot better. It flows a lot nicer. And then from a performance standpoint, right, things haven't really changed. They're using the same transmission. They're using the same engine. They will offer some new powertrains in the near future with this Grand Cherokee L. So things will shake up just a little bit. But for the time being, right, driving wise, it's not like it drives significantly different from an acceleration standpoint. Now, from a suspension standpoint, if you got an old Grand Cherokee with the air suspension, it was smooth, but it's not as smooth as this new L. It definitely drives a lot smoother. If you haven't seen my reviews on the Grand Cherokee L, go watch it so you can see my driving impressions with it. But definitely feels more like a luxury car from a driving perspective. And so, I mean, overall, if you look at it right, exterior-wise, yes, definitely a huge change. Interior-wise, it's not like they've changed a massive amount, but they've cleaned it up and they've changed enough that it feels like a whole new vehicle, and it feels very nice and it feels very upscale and luxury. And that's exactly what Jeep was going for. Now, the last thing I forgot to mention is the pricing with the new Grand Cherokee L is actually really solid. So this particular L in the reserve package with the V6 stickers for about $66,000, which is very similar in price to what you could get with the last generation Summit fully loaded. And so they haven't really increased the price. But again, this has a third row. And so when the new regular Grand Cherokee comes out for the 2022 model year, it's actually going to be a little bit more affordable than the past generation, but it's going to have all these nice updates. So just think about that for a second. Now that's going to sum things up for our comparison between the old Grand Cherokee and the new Grand Cherokee. And like I said, sorry that I couldn't find two models that are exactly the same, but hopefully that helped you guys out with comparing the old model to the new model to help you figure out if you want to buy the new L or if you just want to stick with the older model. As always, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller, Dodge Ram, Jeep Chrysler here in Provo for giving me some time with both of the Grand Cherokees. Check out the inventory link below. I'll see all of you in the next video.